I call the 2420th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. This meeting is being held in person at City Hall and by video conference. The public may participate in this meeting by coming to City Hall or joining the Zoom webinar. The meeting is being broadcast live on the city's YouTube channel and Comcast Cable Channel 30 in city limits. There will be opportunities for the public to speak during this meeting. If you would like to address council, you may come to City Hall or participate via Zoom. If you are interested in speaking, please let staff know by filling out a yellow comment card, which over there on that table, for those at City Hall, or email ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov for those on Zoom. When it is time to take public comments, staff will monitor the comment cards, email inbox, and Zoom participant list and chat. We will take comments in the order they are received and seen. Comments may be emailed to ocr@milwaukieoregon.gov. We ask that all Zoom participants who intend to speak label their Zoom username to show their first and last names for the record. Spanish translation services are available upon request. The public is asked to request translation and other meeting accessibility services at least 48 hours before the meeting. For more information, contact the city recorder at 503-786-7502. Servicios de traducción en español está disponible cuando sea solicitado. Se pide al público que solicite servicios de traducción y otros servicios de accesibilidad por lo menos 48 horas antes de la reunión. Para obtener más información, llama al secretario de la ciudad a 503-786-7502. Translation services are also available in other languages. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The City of Milwaukie respectfully acknowledges that our community is located on the ancestral homeland of the Clackamas people. In 1855, the surviving members of the Clackamas signed the Willamette Valley Treaty, also known as the Kalapuya, etc. Treaty, with the federal government in good faith. We offer our respect and gratitude to the indigenous people of this land. And I will move on to our announcements. The city's annual board and committee recruitment kicked off on February 1st. Participate in the city's work and get involved in your community by applying to serve on a board or committee. From the Arts Committee to the Tree Board, there are many interesting areas, projects, and programs to get involved with through the volunteer boards and committees. Applications will be accepted until April 1st. Learn how to save lives this Thursday with a free naloxone training at the Leading Library from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Participants will learn about the overdose crisis, risk factors, signs and symptoms of an overdose, and how to reverse an overdose to save lives. Registration is required. Oh, I need to do that. I was just planning to show up, so I guess I better register. Volunteer at Kellogg Creek Stewardship Day this Saturday from 9 a.m. to noon at the Milwaukie Presbyterian Church. Volunteers will first gather inside for breakfast treats, coffee, and hot chocolate to learn about the Kellogg Creek Restoration and Community Enhancement Project, aka the dam, before heading outside to remove invasive plants. If you own or operate a business and want to share what's on your mind with city leaders, please stop by City Hall on Friday, February 28th from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. to attend a business open door session. I will be there with Assistant City Manager Joseph Brilio to greet you. You don't have to sign up to participate, so please just stop by. The session will take place right here in Council Chambers on the 3rd floor of City Hall. Volunteer at the Johnson Creek Watershed Council's Watershed-wide event on Saturday, March 1st from 8:45 a.m. to noon. This annual event is the largest planting event of the year along Johnson Creek. Volunteers can choose from one of 8 work parties throughout the watershed. Register at www.jcwc.org. Save the date for the grand opening celebrations for Milwaukee's 3 new parks on Saturday, March 8th. The Balfour Park celebration will begin at 12 and end at 2. The Bowman Bray Park celebration will begin at 12:30 and end at 2:30. And the Scott Park celebration will begin at 1:30 and end at 3:30. So people will be zooming all over town that day. Formal remarks will take place at 2 p.m. at Scott Park. Each event will include family-friendly entertainment, activities, and free refreshments. Some examples include a bubble show at Bowman Bray Park, provided by PDX Parties, and a churreria provided by Don Bigote, handcrafted churros at Balfour Park. The images on the slide provide a sneak peek for how amazing each park looks, so be sure to come out and see them for yourself on March 8th. And I will note that 2 of the 3, Bowman and Bray and Scott, are already open. And I'm told that we expect to open Balfour early next week, so watch for that if you live in that neighborhood. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at milwaukeeoregon.gov or call 503-786-7555. Did you have a, yes? Please.
I do have an announcement. Are you wrapped up?
Yep.
Okay, so I just wanted to mention thank you to the mayor and the assistant city manager for being at the business open door on the 28th. There are also national calls for an economic blackout on that day, and it's in response to the federal administration's executive order around the potential to freeze funds for companies that support diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and policies within their businesses. And so nationally, there's a very large conversation about how this is affecting big corporations. And the call is to vote with your dollar and black out the economy that day. But I want to actually make a plea that you do vote with your dollar and support local Milwaukee businesses that do hold true to the values around diversity, equity, and inclusion. There are a lot of them here in our city, and they deserve our support. And so if you are choosing to make a statement that day on the 28th, in addition to going to the business open door, then please visit one of our local businesses and thank them for standing up for DEI in Milwaukee.
I love that idea, and don't order from Amazon that day, and don't, stay out of the big corporate businesses. I like it. Okay, it's time for a haiku. I believe this is our first haiku from a Milwaukie High School student, Kayala Tobiasen. Hopefully I didn't butcher her name. Our fair city small, yet filled with hearts that are big, supportive, loving. Very nice, very nicely done, Kayala. I am always taking haiku. We have a few more months worth of haiku, but I'm always taking and adding to the list, so please send me yours. With that, I will move on to our proclamation for celebrating Black Excellence Month. And I believe that'll be introduced by our Equity and Inclusion Coordinator, Gabriela Santoyo Gutierrez, and the Executive Director of the North Clackamas Chamber of Commerce, Jay Jones. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for the introduction, Mayor Beatty. Good afternoon, buenas tardes, City Council. It's great seeing you all again. Today, I'm here in honor to co-present the Black Excellence Month Proclamation. And before I introduce Jay, I want to note Jay's mom's also present. Carol is with us tonight, so I want to make sure she's recognized. I'd also like to give some background behind this proclamation. The City of Milwaukie has recognized its first Black History Month proclamation, originally titled African American History Month in 2017. Today, and since 2021, it's renamed Black Excellence Month as an intentional reframing to celebrate key innovators, inventors, and educators who are not well known, but whose work and sacrifice have contributed to the advancement of technology, medicine, education, and society. Now, with that, we wanted to make space to highlight and honor local leaders to share about themselves and the work in the community. So I'm excited and get to read Jay's incredible biography with us today. So J.S. Jones is a dedicated business leader, advocate, and community builder who serves as the president and CEO of the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce. A Portland native and proud graduate of Benson Pelotonic High School and the University of Oregon, Jay has spent over 25 years driving the economic empowerment, leadership, development, and business success across multiple industries, including retail, technology, operations, and nonprofit. Jay's leadership is rooted in the values of equity, collaboration, and resilience, principles that have long guided the pursuit of Black excellence throughout history. He has dedicated his career to creating opportunities for businesses of all sizes while championing initiatives that foster economic inclusiveness and shared prosperity. Beyond his professional role, Jay is deeply committed to serving his community. He sat on the executive board for Exceed Enterprises Incorporated and is on the executive committee for the YMCA of Columbia-Willamette and is on the board of directors for Friends of the Children and the Children's Center. His work in these organizations reflects his passion for mentorship, education, and advocacy, key pillars in the ongoing movement for social and economic justice. Jay and his wife of 27 years, Carrie, live in Happy Valley, Oregon, where they have raised 3 children. His journey from Portland to leadership roles in organizations like Nike, Kroger, and Home Depot reflects the resilience, innovation, and strength that defines Black excellence. As he helps us kick off Black History and Black Excellence Month in Milwaukie, Jay remains committed to uplifting voices, strengthening businesses, and inspiring the next generations of leaders. So with that, I'll transition it over to Jay to share more about himself.
Welcome, Jay.
Thank you guys for having me. First, I just want to say it's awesome being a part of a community that actually gets it. We are in a weird time. I look at, the news and I look at some of the leaders that we have in our nation, and you have to be careful what words you say, which doesn't really help and lift people up and help people when they're in a tough time. And so I appreciate what's going on today here because there's so many that before us, Maya Angelou, Martin Luther King, and someone had to help them, right? Someone had to give them a block so they can, so they can block and tackle. Someone had to give them the idea. It's just like when someone ran the 4-minute mile. As soon as you can see that can be attained, then you can exceed with excellence. And so for someone that was born, was supposed to be intellectually disabled, never walk or talk, had club feet, was in an orphanage for 3.5 years before I was adopted, to be a president and CEO of the North Clackamas Chamber, to be able to work with businesses, to be able to aspire performance is because of organizations like the Milwaukie Council that get it, they care, they understand. It's good to say it's Black Excellence Month. It's okay to say it's Cancer Awareness Month. You can still care about cancer awareness and care about diabetes at the same time because, we're intelligent folks. And so for me, for someone who all my life I've strived with excellence to make sure that I can help others. And the reason why I'm involved with nonprofits is because I want to make sure that I help other leaders, other youth, reimagine what their future can be. And you guys making this proclamation important, that just helps, right? There's going to be someone that's watching on, online, that because of what you're doing here, they will have more grit and more desire to become successful. They will help out other people that look a little bit different than they do. And then they will have aligned systems and structures to make sure that we continue to excel. So that's for me. I don't even want you to read my questions, but I just want you to know that I'm excited about the work that's happened in Milwaukie. I care about what's going on downtown. I also care that this group, this council, is intentional about what leadership is actually about: being compassionate, being caring, telling the truth. So I appreciate the time, and I'm really excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank both of you.
Okay.
Would one of you like to read the proclamation, or do you want me to read it? I am happy to let someone else read it.
I will read it.
Okay.
Whereas each year since 1986, the United States observes Black History Month, a month-long celebration every February to acknowledge the struggles and accomplishments of Black and African Americans for racial justice that stirred the very conscience of our nation. And whereas Black Americans for generations have courageously led the pursuit of justice and equality, from Harriet Tubman to Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to bell hooks and beyond. Whereas Black Americans have made significant contributions and sacrifices to our nation's economic, educational, political, artistic, literary, scientific, and technological advancements despite historical and current injustices. And whereas in Milwaukie, we celebrate the contributions of Black Americans who have been active in our community, including Jay Jones, President and CEO of North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce, Siona Belay of Zena Construction, entrepreneurial boxing promoter George Moore, and Milwaukie pastry kitchen proprietors Curtis and Dorothy Hadley, among others. And whereas our nation struggles to overcome the systemic racism that results in persistent inequality, the importance of systemic change and greater dialogue to promote understanding, break down barriers, build community is essential. And whereas as individuals, we must learn more about the history of Black Americans generally, and in Oregon in particular, and work to build a Milwaukie where every person has equitable access to educational and employment opportunities and housing. Now therefore, do I read this part?
I'll read. Now therefore, I, Lisa Beatty, Mayor of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, and with the full support and sponsorship of the City Council, do hereby proclaim February 2025 to be Celebrating Black Excellence Month in Milwaukie and recommend its observance with appropriate programs and activities. So thank you, guys. Yeah.
Thank you.
You. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member comments regarding city business that is not already on the agenda. Before we begin, is there follow-up from the February 4th community comments, Ms. Sagor?
Thank you, Mayor. At our last meeting, we heard some comments from members of the Equity Steering Committee, and there are no real follow-ups to that, but just it was worth a listen if folks want to hear it from home. Other than that, no follow-up.
Okay, thank you. So I have a few comment cards. I'm assuming, well, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and read my, read the rest of the script before, okay. For those in person who wish to speak, please submit a yellow comment card found on the table just inside the chamber's door. If you are on Zoom, please use the raise hand reaction to alert staff that you wish to speak. And when instructed to begin, click the microphone option to unmute yourself. If you are telephoning in through Zoom and would like to make a comment, dial *9 to raise your hand. You may also submit a comment via email to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov. Before you make your comments, please state your name and city of residence for the record. If you would like the city to follow up with you, please submit your contact information to ocr@milwaukeeoregon.gov or included on your yellow sheet, either way. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because information provided during community comments may be new, this is not the time for discussion, but the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. So I have 3 comments, and I'll start with Steve Bennett. I know he actually contacted in advance and indicated he was coming, so he's here for the Milwaukie Historical Society, and we do generally give organizations a little more than the 3 minutes, but yeah.
I will be respectful of the time. Mayor Beatty, council members, thank you for the opportunity to talk. I'm speaking tonight on my behalf as well as on the behalf of the entire board of the Milwaukie Historical Society. We've noted the work that's being done recently in consideration and planning for the neighborhood hubs and other activities. And it seems to us that a foundational component of the analysis is missing. An inventory of the assets of the historical value of the city. Knowing what places the city has that are significant in terms of culture and architecture should be a part of this discussion. The last historic inventory was completed in 1988. The cutoff, considering the building historic, was and still is 50 years. So in 1988, a house that was built in 1938 was considered historic, 38 and before. Today, the cutoff would be 1975. In 1988, there were roughly 1,200 buildings in Milwaukie old enough to be part of that inventory. Today, there are close to 4,000 buildings that would be part of that inventory if it was done today. And the longer we wait to do it, the more that number will grow, because there are still 1,800 houses that were built since 1975, and most of those were in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So every year that gets delayed just adds to that 4,000. To help visualize this, I've compiled a map for you of the various neighborhood associations and color-coded them for those that are in blue are houses that are built before 1938, so they would have been included in the last survey. The houses in red are those that would be considered today, the 4,000. And anything that's in that dark yellow color is something that would not be considered, and white we don't have the data on. So that's the brief summary. So I just give that to you so that you can look through it and familiarize yourself with where these houses are, where the structures are, not just the houses. I haven't had the time yet to determine what of the houses that were there in the last survey are lost since then, but I'm sure it's not zero. And I will continue to research that. I'm also haven't had the time yet to look at the hubs consideration and see what buildings might fall in with those that would be that potentially would be lost. I'm sure it's not zero either, but in all fairness, I'm going to continue working on that. Please don't think that I'm saying, because I'm not, that we need to keep everything. That's improbable, it's impossible. But I'm also saying that we need to be aware of the items of historical interest so that we don't lose them. Because if we do lose them, they're gone forever. We can't get them back. There is architectural, economic, and cultural value that's in these buildings. Old City Hall is just one example. And I thank the council for not just thinking that it should be disposed of and gone away with, because it could have been. But without an historic inventory that's up to date, like I said, we stand the increasing chance of losing assets without knowing it. And that's more of the reason for getting this done. So I urge you tonight to not keep relegating the historic inventory to the back burner, to make it more front and center. Consider it along with the other items that you are taking a part of and considering, and make it a living part of the city so that we don't have the chance to to lose those assets and have them gone forever. We at the Historical Society have already started working on that, toward that process. We started it several years ago by downloading the data from the state. I cleaned it up because there were about 400 addresses that were wrong in that data. I produced maps like the ones that I gave you that show where these assets are, so that we can, at the time when we are able to move forward, have some place to go to start that process. We also have money set aside within our budget to help with this process, but as a historical society, we're not in a position to do this. It's just too big of a job. So we'll look to the city for leadership and commitment to that. So that's what I wanted to say. I urge you to keep this in mind. I urge you to consider it and raise the priority so that we can get it done, keep on top of it, and not lose assets that we don't know about. Thank you.
Okay, I have Jean Monaco.
Hello.
Hi.
Thanks for giving me the time here. Scott, are you able to pull up those pictures? I have a little different topic for everybody tonight. I live next to the Cheragino Farm development on Lake Road. And ever since that development happened, there's been a slew of good and bad things that have come our way since then. What we're looking at here is, can you pull up that other one? That first one. No, yeah, that one. This right here shows the whole Cheragino Farms development.
It's kind of, yeah, I don't think, you won't get picked up there, and we're looking at this one anyway, so.
We can see it down here.
Oh, okay. Well. Thanks. Basically, there's a big problem with the farm. The farm was overdeveloped. Down here at the south end of the farm, there's a water retention pond, and that water retention pond is to mitigate water runoff from all these homes. When the pond was first developed, it was allowed each one of these homes to be 2,500 square foot of impervious surface. That number was exceeded by over an acre and a half, almost 2 acres. So the pond is now undersized. Now, I live right here next to this farm, and what I'm proposing to do is to just partition my house away from the rest of the property. And in that, I need to extend this Southeast Barberland Way through my property. And since the city of Milwaukie has used up all of that space in the pond, now I am forced to have an $8,000 water survey done. In addition to that, the housing has changed in there from residential 10 to now moderate density residential, which means that I can no longer do a small 20-foot wide street, which the planning has told me I could do for the past 4 years. And now I have to do a full-blown 54-foot wide right-of-way, which is going to be, my engineer estimated the cost at $375,000 to $450,000 to make this little short road here through my property. So I'm here today because I've met with all of your planning staff. I've had over 400 emails, and I've been going at this for 4 years now. And I've met with MSA Gore, and I am at my wit's end here. And so I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to do. So this is my next step. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Can I just ask a clarifying question? You're saying the drain, just focused on the drainage issue, you're saying you should have been able to put your stormwater drainage into the Cheragino Farms pond?
Correct. Yep. Yeah, when they AKS Engineering, which is a huge engineering firm here, they're massive. They designed that pond for my parcel and the 2 other parcels to my east because the known soil there was so, it doesn't infiltrate very well. And so they designed the pond to be able to accommodate my parcel and the 2 parcels to my east. And so the city of Milwaukie was supposed to have homes that were 2,500 square feet, and they far surpassed that number by almost 2 acres of
Impervious surface.
Impervious surface, yes. So, so it's going to be a big deal. And when we get that massive rainfall, it's going to overwhelm that creek down there, and everybody's going to have a big problem on their hands. So.
Okay, thank you. As you heard at the beginning, our city manager will respond at the next meeting. Yeah. Okay, and then Rod Smith, are you, for this time slot, are you on the, you say Senate Bill 687? I assume that's not our code package. It's not 687. Okay. So Rod Smith, please state your name.
Hello, my name is Rod Smith. Reason I came here is I was wanting to have a chance to have a conversation and perhaps even twirl my cane and make some sort of flowery speech about an issue I had. But better angels have prevailed. And I was to have a conversation about decorum and how we have a conversation with one another and how the city of Milwaukie and, well, the government that we claim that we want to have represent us seem to have a need to make it an us against them. Now, in the Monday, February 3rd, 2025, a conversation with the previous mayor, Mr. Gamba, came out and called us all petulant children because we could not be trusted to make an educated voting bloc that decided if we wanted a higher gas tax. Now, not only did he demand to be quoted on this, he did it in 2 different conversations. In Senate Bill 687 is something he pushed forward. It has so many holes and flaws in it that any one of us could walk straight through it. There is no sunsetting bill. So let's say a community wants to raise the gas prices by 79 cents, which is part of one of the plans. It never sunsets. It just sits there. It just continues to compound. It also points out that populations under 350,000 in certain counties may vote because, their vote matters. But anyone beyond the 350,000 peak should not have the ability to vote. Now, I have a lot of problems with how the decorum of our previous mayor has come across and called us all petulant children. Now, I say us all because I want to believe it is not an us versus you. It is an us versus this petulant child that had come up here and had the audacity to say that we're not intelligent enough to make our own decisions. Now, if you do not understand what the Constitution of the United States is, and I know sometimes that leads to other matters, but representation, taxation without representation, the representation I demand is voting on each of these points. Now, I know for a fact that the city of Milwaukie has moved forward and the county has moved forward on other stipulations and not allowing us to have certain voting rights on points that I understand. Excuse me. But I believe that this needs to be addressed by the city council and at least someone send a message to Mr. Gamba to say that perhaps the decorum that we deserve as a people is not to be called petulant children. If you please, I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you. And did we have anybody else? No? Do we have anybody online?
We do have a Zoom audience tonight, but no one's raised their hand.
No one's raised their hand to participate? Okay. Okay, then we will go on to our consent agenda. Tonight's consent agenda includes minutes of the City Council January 21st, 2025 work session and January 21st, 2025 regular session. A resolution acting as the local contract review board authorizing an amendment to the contract with BMS Technologies for utility bill printing and mailing services. A resolution acting as the local contract review board reinstating a grant agreement with Justice and Security Strategies for a body-worn camera policy and implementation program. A resolution authorizing a financing contract with the state of Oregon for the development of per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, also known as PFAS, feasibility study. A resolution removing Jeff Landry from the Public Safety Advisory Committee and appointing Julie King to the PSAC. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item?
Not to remove one, Mayor, but just some scrivener's errors on the minutes. For the minutes, didn't even get the date. January 21st minutes.
Work or regular?
Oh, this was the council report, so that's the work session.
Okay.
It said Council Barty reported on a community advisory board. It's actually community action board. And then it also says Barty also reported on Clackamas County Water Environmental Services, or excuse me, not that one, but the fourth line, which is single sentence, added a note on the CAB's SDC discussion. It was actually Wes's SDC discussion, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other, okay. Does any council member wish to remove a consent agenda item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the consent agenda as revised.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda as revised. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved unanimously. We had originally had we had in our packet the council, the matrix of council committee assignments. It was not on this list today.
It was not a new script, but it was on consent. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess we will bring it back next meeting.
Or you
It also had some.
Yeah, actually, that gives us
errors.
some time to make those edits that you suggested, Mayor.
Yeah.
They're Scrivener-ish, but it will just be good to get a cleaned up one, so we'll put that on the March 18th.
Okay. Or March 4th.
March
Either
4th.
one. Yeah.
I clearly have forgotten that February still has 2 weeks.
That'd be easy to repackage and bring back. And Councilor Barty, thank you for those notes. We'll clean up the minutes.
Okay. So we have two public hearings, or we have one public hearing? Anyway, Senate Bill 1537 Code Amendments. The public hearing on the proposed SB 1537 Code Amendments adoption is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider approving the proposed code changes. Does any council member wish to announce actual or potential conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Senior Planner Vera Colias.
Evening, Mayor, members of council. Thanks very much for having us. Here to present for the public hearing for the SB 1537 Code Amendments. This is a follow-up to our work session back in October, which feels like years ago, as well as a public hearing with the Planning Commission on January 28th. Okay. The purpose of Senate Bill 1537, which was signed back actually almost a year ago, March 5th, was to address Oregon's housing supply and affordability crisis. The law became effective this past January 1st, and it sunsets on January 2nd, 2032. It has several provisions that are summarized here on the slide. I will be focusing on, as part, the code amendments focus on an item that talks about having it requires cities to grant administrative adjustments or variances to local siting and design standards for housing development. So on the slide are the other items that are in 1537, but we're going to be talking about the required variances that are part of the Senate bill. So the bill requires cities to grant variances to development and design standards. So it does have to go through a type 2 review process. It has a different timeline, but we are required to approve them. And you are allowed to package up to 10 distinct variances as part of one of these variance packages. There are specific conditions and timelines that we would have to follow as part of the Senate bill. There is also a potential exemption to being required to allow any of these variances. So I'd like to walk you through what the Senate bill requires, what the exemption process requires, and how that affects the current code proposal that we have before you. So an applicant for a residential development would qualify for this package of 10 variances if the development is located in a residential or mixed use zone, if the development would meet a minimum density of 17 dwelling units of an acre, and if it includes a net increase of new housing units. And it talks about mixed use development, single detached, middle housing, ADUs, et cetera. And as part of the applicability for being able to sort of enact or ask that SB 1537 be used for their development, you have to show that the variances would enable development that's otherwise not feasible, reduce the sale or rental price of the unit, increase the number of units above what would normally be allowed by the zoning, enable provision of accessibility or visitability features that they talk about, or also that they might be affordable units in one way or another. So any one of these would have to apply to the development for them to be able to use 1537 for the development. The Senate bill does not provide really any guidance on how an applicant would show how some of these things might work. It's just sort of part of the application package that they would have to provide. There are a very specific list of development standards that 1537 identifies that would be, that are on the list of variances. And so the standards themselves and then the amount of the variance as well. So things like landscape, reduction in landscaping areas, lot size, maximum lot coverage, setbacks, and you can see the chart here on the screen. I note that, so the city, our code has a variety of type 2 variances as well that we call sort of the mathematical variances. And some of our variances actually are over and above what Senate Bill 1537 has. For example, side setbacks, we have a 40% decrease, for example, instead of as part of a type 2. So just to give just some comparison that we have a collection of type 2 variances as well within our own code package. There are also some design standards that are in there. So things like being able to vary the, if your code requires specific facade materials or colors or articulation, roof forms, window materials, the things that are not sort of math, that are more about the design of a structure. The review is a type 2 review, and so that does require public notice, and it is a planning manager's decision. Only the applicant has the ability to appeal a decision that comes from a 1537 application. And as I said, the measure does sunset in 2032. So what most communities are doing are applying the Senate bill as needed, as opposed to trying to incorporate the bill within their code language, since it's going to go away in a few years. So the exemption, so there is an exemption process within 1537 that if the city can show that any of the listed variances are eligible for a variance in your code, and that within the last 5 years, the city has approved 90% of requested variances, then the city can request an exemption from applying the statute to those standards. So they have I've been looking through sort of the application process for the exemption. It's extensive and they want a lot of details, but it is doable. And Milwaukie can provide evidence of both. We have in the listed variants, some of the requirements or some of the variances that are in SB 1537, we don't require. So those are sort of non-applicable in our code. But for all of the ones that they list that we actually require, we do provide variances for all of them. And we have approved over 90% of all of our requested variances, except our code currently prohibits variances that have the effect of exceeding the maximum density for a residential development. And maximum density applies to multifamily development and single detached dwelling development. Middle housing is exempt from maximum density, except for townhouses. So in our current code, the only way to exceed density is through a planned development process, like we did for Hillside a few years ago. And maximum density limits the number of units in a development. It doesn't talk about the size of a building or the height or anything like that. It's all about the number of dwelling units within the Jell-O mold or the box that we've talked about many times before. So our code relies primarily on development standards to regulate site development. So things like lot coverage and setbacks and minimum landscaping in our tree code, et cetera. And so as an example, if you sort of look on a plan view, you've got your setbacks, you have your maximum lot coverage, and then so that kind of creates the box within which you have your units. So for single detached dwellings, maximum density applies during land division only because it's one unit on one lot. So our density standards are tagged specifically more to lot size as opposed to the number of units. So a variance to minimum lot size is what you would ask for to kind of get more units within a subdivision if it was for single detached dwellings. So in order to qualify for an exemption to that standard within 1537, the city would have to allow a variance to maximum density. So the direction that we received from City Council back in October was to move forward with an amendment package that would remove that prohibition on variances to maximum density and to move forward with the exemption application. We have also included a type 2 variance amendment so that an applicant could come in and ask to increase the maximum density for their development by up to 25%. So that's a new amendment that we're including because we want to reflect that, not just that because right now if you wanted to ask for, if we prohibit or if we remove the prohibition, then it's a type 3 variance to increase the maximum density on a development.
Okay.
Because we don't have a type 2 until now. So if all we did was remove the prohibition, it would be a type 3 because we don't have it listed in our type 2 mathematical variances. So we are proposing that we do include a type 2 variance to increase maximum density to provide some more development opportunity. We do have collection of multifamily developments, throughout the city. And for a lot of them, if they wanted to split one of the units and create two one-bedroom units, for example, out of a two-bedroom unit, and that bumps them over the maximum density, that would be a type 3 variance. And that seems like a pretty heavy lift for someone that wanted to do something like that. It's still a type 2 variance. There's still approval criteria and there's still public notice, of course. So they still would need to go through that process. But a 25% bonus for maximum density might be just the thing that gets a development of a couple of extra dwelling units and we've talked about housing quite a bit today already with you earlier. It might be just the thing that we would need to kind of kick up a development and get a few extra units. Again, our development standards still are in play, of course, to kind of manage the size of the box, but adding a few more units into that box, we think is something that we should entertain. So that is the proposed amendment package that you have before you that was reflected in the staff report as well as the findings. We did, of course, have our public hearing notification process, and then we did have our hearing with the Planning Commission on the 28th of January, where they voted unanimously to recommend approval of the code package. We did not receive any comments as part of the city council hearing. We did receive comments from the housing land advocates who spoke in support of the code amendments, but those comments were submitted to the Planning Commission, not to city council. So council has some options on what you might do this evening. You could approve the proposed amendments per the recommended findings in support of approval. That is our recommendation. You could approve the amendments with revisions. We would need to read those modifications into the record. You could deny the proposed amendments. We will need those findings for denial tonight. Or you could, of course, continue the hearing. This is a legislative hearing, so that we don't have the 120-day clock to contend with. I'm very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does anyone have questions for Vera? Not seeing any, and our script says, have we received any additional correspondence? I'm assuming that's a no, okay. All right. Does anyone wish to comment on the proposed SB 1537 code changes? I do not have any yellow cards. I am not seeing any hands. Mr. Stauffer, nobody online? Okay, so I will dispense with the rest of that script. And there's no testimony to respond to. Last call for questions from council? None? All right, if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
I move to close the public comment part of SB 1537 code change hearing.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public comment part of the SB 1537 code changes hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Is there any council discussion? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion.
I move for the first and second reading by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending the municipal code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of removing the prohibition on variances to maximum density. Primary file number ZA-2024-002.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded for the first and second readings by title only and adoption of the ordinance amending the municipal code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of removing the prohibition on variances to maximum density. Primary file number ZA-2024-002. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed say no. None heard. Ms. Sager, would you please read the ordinance 2 times by title only?
Absolutely. An ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of removing the prohibition on variances to maximum density, primary file number ZA-2024-002. And again, an ordinance of the City of Milwaukie, Oregon, amending the Milwaukie Municipal Code Title 19 zoning ordinance for the purpose of removing the prohibition on variances to maximum density, primary file number ZA 2024-002.
Mr. Stoffer, would you please poll the council?
Counselor Massey?
Aye.
Council President Anderson?
Aye.
Counselor Stavengard?
Aye.
Counselor Casarabati?
Aye.
Mayor Beatty?
Aye.
Motion carried 5-0, ordinance 2249.
Okay. And before, oh,
Can I just make a comment
Yeah.
real quick? There's parts of this bill that I agree with, and there's parts of this bill that I don't. I just have to say, some of this bill just feels like overreach to me. And I can't speak for the other municipalities in Oregon, but at least for Milwaukie. Milwaukie has been doing a lot of good things, and for the state to just come in and bum rush us with some stuff, while continuing to allow market rate developers to do what they do, which is outprice all of us, really sucks. It really does suck. There's components of this bill I do like the revolving loan fund. The other part of it that I don't like is the one about the urban growth boundary, which we don't have. That's the only space in this bill where they actually talk about specifically reserving space for affordable housing. This bill does nothing more than continue to perpetuate developers to build what they want and price what they want to price at the market and continue to price out average people. There's just not enough in this bill that does the right thing to build the right things that we need. And that's just, it's just every time they bring this up, it's just consistent overreach. And it's
well,
frustrating.
sorry, no public comment now. I appreciate your comments, and I do encourage you to watch what's going on in Salem this term on housing, because I think we have more overreach coming our way. Vera, I have a very important question for you. What happened? Do you not want to say in public? Oh.
Inspection on a not very well-managed construction site. The end.
Seriously, that's a workers' comp. Oh. I thought you're Miss Athlete. I thought you did something rowing or something.
I wish that was the story, but I'm not going to lie.
Wow. Well, feel better soon. Hope it heals well.
Thanks very much, folks. Appreciate it.
Before I move on to the next hearing, I do want to say, it came up in the work session, watching the Beaverton City Council hearings, and they do things quite differently there. And one thing I liked is they don't even vote on closing the record. They just close the record. So I would like us to explore whether we can just do that. And rather than having to have a motion to close the record, the proceeding officer closes the record. The other thing is their lawyer reads a lot of the script. So I'll just say that.
I get the distinct impression that none of you want to listen to me anyway. So.
Do we have enough paper for that? I'm not sure.
Is there enough paper for that? Okay, we will move on to our second public hearing, the Sparrow Site Surplus Property Declaration, a resolution. The public hearing on the proposed Sparrow Site Surplus Property Declaration is called to order. The purpose of this hearing is to hear the staff report, take public comments, deliberate, and consider approving the proposed surplus declaration. Does any council member wish to announce actual or potential conflicts of interest? Seeing none, I will turn it over to Project Development Coordinator Mandy Bird.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Mandy Bird, Development Project Manager. So as Mayor Beatty said, we are here for a surplus hearing tonight for the Sparrow site. This is a required step in conveying the property through an RFP process. Another piece of the process was that we sent out the mailing last week and posted in the newspaper, and those postings are in the packet that you had tonight. Just for those who aren't familiar, I've got an overview of the site here. The city purchased these two parcels from TriMet, the first one in 2019, and then the auxiliary parcel was purchased in 2022. And then last year, staff came to council to get updates on prioritizing the site, and then we discussed updated project goals. Those project goals were adopted by this body last month, January 2025. And that's when we also talked about coming back for a surplus hearing. Just to recap the project goals, this is just a summary of the goals, the full text of the goals. You can check it out in the resolution from the January 7th meeting. But all of these project goals will be embedded in the future RFP as far as evaluating the proposals that come in. As far as next steps for the process, once we are finished with the surplus hearing, staff will do a replat since there are some different parcels that will, or lots that need to be consolidated on both parcels. That's shown on the plat map and the staff report. And then we will release the RFP and convene a review committee that will be evaluating and selecting the winning proposal. Then staff will negotiate with the developer as far as everything needed to be included, which will include public engagement, the remedial action plan work, the right-of-way access improvements, brownfield mitigation, and then ultimately construction of affordable home ownership at the site. And with that, the request tonight is for council to approve the resolution declaring the two parcels as surplus and authorizing the city manager to release an RFP for development.
Thank you. Have we received any correspondence on the topic? No?
Nope.
Okay. Questions for Mandy?
No questions, just very excited.
Is there anyone who wishes to comment on the proposed surplus property declaration? I don't have any yellow cards and I'm not seeing any hands. Do we have anyone online?
We still have a Zoom audience, but their hand is not raised.
Okay. All right, then I will forego the script. Last chance for questions from council. All right, if there are no more questions, I will entertain a motion to close the public comment part of the hearing.
I move to close the public comment part of the surplus property declaration hearing.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to close the public comment part of the surplus property declaration hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. The public comment part of the hearing is closed. Any council discussion? In that case, I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution declaring two Sparrow site lots surplus and authorizing the city manager to sell, transfer, or lease the properties for development.
I second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution declaring two Sparrow site lots surplus and authorizing the city manager to sell, transfer, or lease the properties for development. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say no. None heard. It passes unanimously. Yay! Exciting to have that moving, yeah. All right. So next we have a legislative update and council reports generally, which we will be starting during this legislative session with the legislative priorities update from Mr. Stauffer, who's been tracking some of our bills.
Indeed, and I will work on the assumption that the number of bills that were added in the last couple of weeks is because it's the beginning of this session and there's still lots of hope for many things that'll probably die. But for today, there's lots of hope. So here's our update for this evening. We're still before the introduction deadline and the revenue forecast at the end of the month. So we have, I think, 36 bills being tracked between the bills I got from council and the bills I got from staff. So I want to thank staff colleagues for those who took this request pretty seriously and have put some on here. And thanks to council for giving me those two. Having said that, as of this morning, I checked OLIS, and I think there are 3 of these 36 bills that have anything going on right now. So in some ways, this is a long list, and I've clumped it by topic area, so please tell me if I've mislabeled something. And so there's a lot to go through real quick, but there's also not a lot of stuff happening at the moment. So I do want to go through each one very quickly right now, just to make sure that I caught the numbers right and the summary correctly. I'm trying to keep each one to one line, so I'm trying to pare down words. So the topic of building energy, Councilor Massey, you asked us to track HB 2830, restricts use of pipes that met standards. There's probably more words that make more sense, but does this, for the moment, look okay?
Yeah, it's fine. It's complicated, but yeah, I'll let it go for now until something happens.
Okay. Any other thoughts on that one? Clean energy, my colleague Katie Guevara's put these two on, Senate Bill 888. Neither have anything scheduled. 8888 prohibits local governments from limiting residential natural gas. And Senate Joint Resolution 32 is a proposed constitutional amendment to provide the right to use natural gas. So you can see a theme in those two. Nothing scheduled there. Any thoughts or comments at the moment?
No, just please do keep watching those. I hope they, Representative Gamba had a bill that would have done the opposite last term, that would have expressly said that local communities can limit natural gas, and it didn't move. So I'm hopeful that these also will not move, but let's keep an eye on them. Yeah.
I mean, I do question, these are both GAF bills introduced by a Republican senator that don't have any legs and won't move. Do we have to track bills that, like, Republicans are introducing bills to ban abortion, to go, like, things that will never move in this session.
And you're pretty comfortable these will never move?
These will not move, yeah. So I question whether we have to track one-off Republican bills that don't have any, they're more a statement than actual policymaking. Maybe we can track them until the deadline passes and then they will be gone.
The usual rhythm is that the list is long and then it withers.
It winnows itself out, yeah.
Katie also added under the topic of climate, Senate Bill 682 uses a polluters model based on greenhouse gas emissions for climate superfund cost recovery program within DEQ. So one interesting, that probably could impact some work at the local governments, but anything on that one? Mayor Beatty and the Metro Mayors Consortium, under the topic of crimes, I'm forgetting if I called it crimes or if you called it crimes, Mayor Beatty. So if there's a better word, let me know. But SB 473 would make threatening a public official a crime. And nothing was scheduled on that yet.
And that was in the update from the Metro Mayors Consortium. I mean, it's one that, yeah. Apparently we have some gaps in our existing law in terms of, threatening public officials. So, yeah. I do think that one, pardon?
That seems really subjective.
Well, look up the bill.
I'll look up the bill. I know that there's something around detaining a public official. There is something in law around detaining, like not prohibiting them from moving away from a conversation.
Yeah.
I'll look it up.
Yeah.
Seems interesting.
And if there's a better way to phrase this, I'm really trying to save space on a slide. So elections, SB 580, I added this one. There's nothing moving on that one. It requires election filings to be posted online. So nothing.
Do we not do that now?
We don't. Some cities do selectively. Okay. It would not be a challenge for us to do that. It's just, and when requested, we do provide them to the various groups in the news media that ask for them. Mm-hmm. But this would just make it more transparent than require everyone to do it. It would not be a burden for us, but there are cities and agencies with much smaller staffing that it would be one more thing to do. So, energy affordability, both Mayor Beatty and Katie Guevara added things here. I think some of these were on the list last time. I think HB 2081 was One Stop 2.0 home resilience. I'll come back to 3179, HB 3336. Transmission systems, SB 88, get the junk out of rates, energy rates, and SB 553 requires the Oregon Department of Energy to study data center power use. None of those have hearings scheduled, and then HB 317 does have a hearing relating to affordable residential energy rate making. And that's, I got a hearing on February 20th.
On Thursday, yeah, okay.
Any on this batch? Or any comments on this batch?
No, I'll look up 3179. I can't remember the specifics, but yeah.
Okay. Fences, again, Mayor Beatty, if I subscribed the wrong header for that one, but fences, HB 2135 allows battery charged fences on non-residential properties.
So I'd included stuff about this in our packet last week. The mayor of Gresham is pretty agitated about this one. They are having, and I was trying to solicit support for pushing back. Joseph kind of took an ambivalent view on it. It sounds like it's not an issue we have people wanting to do here. Is that true? We don't have battery charged fences in our industrial areas? Okay. Okay. I mean, I don't know if people have a view on wanting to support Gresham on that or not. I mean, it does anyway.
They're against it, Christian?
Yeah, they're against expanded use of it. I guess the state law already allows it used to some degree, and this is something that would expand the use of it.
Oh, okay, non-residential properties, so like everything else?
Yeah, yeah. And their point was often these are adjacent to residential properties. And so kids and people just going about their life get impacted by it because they get shocked or whatever. Yeah, it's not just the property that it's on, but it's the surrounding uses, right? Yeah. Okay, you can go ahead.
Under the title, heading of funding, Mayor Beatty and the Metro Mayors are tracking HB 2411 Industrial Site Readiness Funding and SB 5528, the DLCD, the Department of Land Conservation Development Budget, grant funding for local governments. So.
Industrial site readiness, I don't know that it's gonna be hugely helpful to us. I think it's probably more targeted at bigger cities, but I guess, you know, you never know, I guess. The DLCD grant funding is pretty small. It's like 7 or 8 million for the whole state. So it's, again, how much it'll help us, I don't know, but the mayors generally wanted to be supportive on both of those fronts, so.
Okay. Housing, Mayor Beatty and the Metro Mayors, HB 3031, Housing Study, nothing scheduled there, and SB 2698, Statewide Home Ownership Goal.
Has a hearing tomorrow, okay. The 3031 is about the infrastructure, that's the money that would create the infrastructure fund for housing. So the governor's proposing $100 million of infrastructure, but instead of earmarking it to specific cities, as happened last term, this proposal is to create a process where that's managed by the Oregon, I don't know if it's DCLD or who would manage it, but it's something that's important to, places, to building housing. It might be something we want to tap into for Sparrow or other things too. So I do think that pot of money and how it's going to be allocated is something we want to kind of follow. Do you know anything more?
On
3031?
Right now, it's just a placeholder, and so we've yet to see what it's going to be amended into.
Okay.
But it's the governor's housing placeholder, so it might be something else as well.
And do you know anything about the home ownership goal one that's
That
having a
one?
hearing tomorrow?
Let me pull it up. I know Chair Marsh is doing a homeownership themed day, and so it's one of the bills that we're looking at. This is, I think, tied to the fact that we're trying to do housing production goals, also setting home ownership as a component of that.
As a component of
cities
that,
are doing.
yeah.
Kind of related to, frankly, what a lot of us have expressed. It's not just about home ownership housing production. It's also making sure that people are living and owning the units as well.
All right. Okay, I think you can go on.
All right, land use, these were added by Mayor Beatty and Planning Manager Laura Weigel. And the League of Oregon Cities is also tracking these ones. HB 2075 brownfield remediation. HB 2950 requires DLCD to update citizen involvement goal. And SB 2138 is the governor's housing bill. None of these have anything scheduled at the moment.
Yeah, that governor's housing bill apparently has a -1 amendment coming out soon. I'm told that Matthew Schaubold is meeting and holding some meetings and taking some comments. I think our staff saw it late last week. Is that right? Saw the proposals. Anyway, there's some stuff circulating around. I have not had a chance to look at it, but that one is, yeah, it's not going to be near a hearing, and I don't think we know. But it is what I was alluding to for you to watch. I will send you what I have on it. Yeah.
Okay. And Measure 5 and 50, Mayor Beatty is on the tracker. We talked about these last time, and the council letter was sent regarding that, touched on all 4 of these.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're done with that. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't think we need to spend any more time on that. That one is.
Do you want to take them off the tracker? Or just...
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Well, we don't have to talk, I mean, keep them on a tracker, I guess, but we don't have to talk about them every time, for sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Notary Publics, I added this last time. There was a hearing on the Secretary of State being directed to maintain HB 2951, maintaining an online database of notarial acts. Has a hearing tomorrow. That's as much as I know about it, but we do have Notary Publics on staff here at the city, so. Yeah. So there's that, tracking that one. Records, I put some of these, there's several professional organizations tracking these ones I talked about last time. I don't think there's any changes to any of these, and there's 2 legislative concepts I have not seen turn into bills yet. So I don't have anything more to add on the records one unless, records ones, unless anybody has questions about them. Councilor Massey, in a note you sent, there was a legislative concept about operators and training apprenticeship bill, and I looked OLIS, I searched OLIS today, I didn't see anything that seemed to strike me.
Yeah, I didn't see the, a bill number, but it has a legislative concept number, 3981.
Okay. 3981.
3981. This is the water operator enhancements.
Yeah, and it is an LOC priority, so I guess it is really a concern for a lot of cities.
I was surprised they haven't had a bill number yet. They promised it and it hasn't shown up yet.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll update the heading on this to see the LC on it. Katie Guevara's added these transportation bills. None of them have anything scheduled, but there are themes here that the city has tackled in recent years and currently. HB 2430, electric vehicle registration fee increase. HB 2963, e-bike rebate program. HB 3119, advanced clean trucks rule attachment. And Senate Bill 509 prohibits Environmental Quality Commission from adopting motor vehicle emission standards like California does. So maybe a gambit, a range of different approaches there. But
So I hope Katie knows that she's welcome to bring us letters if she feels like a letter is appropriate at any point on any of these. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
And I think this is the last slide for legislation. Mayor Beatty and the Metro Mayors under urban growth, Senate Bill 967, local government improvements in unincorporated areas, UGMAs.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to be that important for us. Yeah.
Councilor Casabody added HB 2537 under veterans, and you spoke on this last time, so I don't know if there's anything new to add.
The only thing is that we were actually myself and a few others of the Oregon Veteran Alliance were planning on testifying last week until it snowed. So we will be traveling there on the 25th, I think it's scheduled for a hearing, I believe. Maybe not, but towards the end of the month. So I'll have more to say on that later.
If you need help formatting letters or anything like that, let me know.
Thank you.
And then Councilor Massey added under water, HB 2803, a fee increase to cover, I forgot what that acronym
Oregon
is.
Water Resources Department.
There you go. Water right grants.
Yeah, this is just to cover the actual cost of granting the water right grants. And they've had a first reading. It's been referred to 3 different committees at this point: agricultural, land use, and natural resources.
Okay. That was the end of the legislation. So if you have more bills to add, it's helpful if you email them, so I have that documentation to add to my tracker. But any other bills that anybody would like us to add from the dais?
Not seeing any.
And I don't think I tracked any letters that council is currently wanting to discuss this evening.
Nope.
Okay, so if that's the case, I will take the privilege of having the mic on to let council know I've already communicated with several of you, but you may be familiar that the city has been a part of the 50th anniversary commemoration of the Vietnam War. Your predecessors on council back in 2012 put the city in that official program. We've done programming and activity with the American Legion Post 180 and the Daughters of the American Revolution for the last almost 15 years. And for this year, we're working on scheduling, planning an event, a Vietnam War Remembrance event on April 5th. It's a Saturday at Scott Park, the newly refurbished Scott Park at the Vietnam Veterans Monument there. Several members of council and the mayor will be speaking there. So just wanted to put it out there on folks' radars, and we hope to have more information in the pilot and other places on social media coming soon. So thank you to our partners at the Post 180, Oregon's largest American Legion post, from what I understand, and the Daughters of the American Revolution for their support on that. So with that, just my reminder where we get our resources information and then questions. And that concludes the legislative report.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great to be tracking all that. I may try before the February or March 4th meeting to go through the ones you have for me and strike a few, because I think a few of them are things we don't necessarily need to follow. But yeah, that was great. All right, other council reports? Nobody?
I just want to mention that the Housing Advisory Board did meet. It was more of an informal meeting, and so that I promised an update about scattered sites, but it'll have to wait for a little bit. They're still soliciting partners and working toward getting some good solutions set for the scattered sites, at least in the unincorporated areas. And I think, it definitely sounds like the Housing Authority is also fans of land banking. And so they'll be looking at some of those options within the city limits. So just wanted to share that.
Okay, great. Anything from you, Counselor? No?
No, thank you.
One thing.
Yeah?
So I was reminded of one of the many reasons that I really love this city is last week during our little snow event, I heard a bunch of noise outside in the morning, and all the neighborhood teenagers were out shoveling everyone's sidewalk and walkway and driveway. And they knocked it out in about an hour or so. They had a school day off, so they put in an hour's worth of good work for the neighborhood and didn't request anything in return, and say they were able to get back to their video games in short order.
Wow, that's awesome. I love that story. That is great. Did you have any? No? I had some notes in the packet of from the NCPRD District Advisory Committee meeting. I don't need to rehash those here. I do think to touch on a subject we had earlier, I do think they will be looking to raise their SDCs, probably not lower their SDCs. And it's an interesting conversation coming on that because, we had Jacob Sherman pointed out to us how really low our parks SDCs were in terms of the region. What was that? Oh. So the amount of SDCs is one question. The other question, of course, being the allocation to sub areas, and that's an authority question. So it'll be interesting to see how that conversation moves forward. But I don't think I have anything else on that. Okay. Oh,
One thing to close us out. We survived Snowpocalypse 2025, but I did just want to shout out that, the days before Valentine's Day are some of the biggest days of the year for our small businesses. And so the snow could not have come at a worse time. So I think I came downtown on Saturday and it was packed, which is so great. But I think we should just kind of keep that activity going and show our small businesses some love who might still be hurting from what otherwise would be a flurry of activity on the 13th and 14th. And instead was a flurry of snow.
well, I was downtown on the 14th and Enchante had somebody shoveling their walk. Actually, most of the walks were pretty good. So somebody had shoveled, but the parking was not plowed, which was kind of problematic. But Enchante was doing a pretty good business in the snow on the 14th. So, but yeah, half of the businesses weren't open for sure. Yeah. I have been in conversation with the city manager and the recorder about having a few of the newer businesses come do an introduction at one of our March meetings, including maybe a new record store in town. So, so I'll look forward to that, hearing from some of our new businesses in town. All right, anything else for the good of the order? All right, if nothing else, I will entertain a motion.
If you adjourn the meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None heard. We're adjourned.